Welcome to the Clean Bee Podcast. I'm your host, Madeline. Life is messy, but it shouldn't be toxic. Whether that's chemicals, relationships, habits, or old ways of thinking, the Clean Bee Podcast is here to help you cut through the noise and release what is no longer serving you. Let's dive in, beautiful. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Clean Bee Podcast. I am your host, Madeline. If you are an OG listener, welcome on back, you guys. I cannot believe that we are at episode number 19. I feel like I've been doing this forever, but in the best way possible. But I also can't believe how fast time is just flying by. So I honestly appreciate you for coming back so much. I know there are so many options when it comes to listening to different podcasts. There's so many shows out there. Honestly, I don't know the number, but I feel like it's definitely in the millions. So the fact that you guys decide to come back and tune in week after week means the absolute world. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And if you are new here, welcome. Honestly, so grateful to have you here. In this show, we cover all the things, really, pretty much anything that can serve you and help you in your journey to discover yourself on a deeper level and aid you in your personal development and self-growth. So we cover the health, the hormones, the wellness, the gut health, the mindset, the motivation, mental health. But we also talk about the esoteric. We talk about the intangible, all of those deep, juicy conversations that you would have with your girlfriends over a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or kombucha, whatever floats your boat. That is what we are talking about on this show. So a little bit of an update / background. I'm actually recording this intro in my bed. I don't know. I'm really leaning into making things as enjoyable as possible lately. I feel like I've been in this really hustle mentality, very masculine energy for a really long time. And it's something that it's almost like that's my comfort zone. And leaning into the comfort and the openness of receiving and relaxing and resting is really, really, really what I'm calling in these days. My dominant doshas in Ayurveda is Pitta and Vata, which if you don't know what that means, go back and listen to episode number 16. I'll link it in the show notes for your reference. But in that episode, we talked about all things Ayurveda and understanding your doshas and what that means. But for a quick synopsis, the Pitta and Vata is very fire and ether and air. So really kind of, a lot of movement. And that's definitely what I'm comfortable with. And so I'm really calling in and looking to balance out that energy with that kapha energy, with that earth energy. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to record this intro in my bed. It's way more comfortable than my desk because I don't really have a nice chair at my desk. I'm grateful for my desk though. I do love that desk. It's really cute. But I also just want to give a little bit of openness and background. I think that, social media and podcasts and all of this, that, and the other, it can really seem like from an outsider looking in, it might seem like, oh, these people have everything figured out. They must have a sick setup to record their podcast. And I'm like, you guys, I'm literally in my bed balancing my microphone on my journal. I have a pillow in front of the microphone to try to give y'all that good sound. I'm really trying to elevate the experience here. But yeah, that's what's going on. That's real life. It's raining outside and I freaking love it. I love rainy weather. I don't know about you, but it just makes me feel really calm and grounded. Again, maybe it's that kapha earth energy that I need. But yeah, so that's what's going on today. And I am so excited, honestly, over the moon excited to share this episode with you guys today because I know that you guys are going to find this so fascinating. A while back, I asked you guys in the community if you had heard of human design. And I would say the majority of you actually had not heard of it yet. And I know that this episode is going to just like blow the socks off you guys. Like, if you love astrology, which I know most of you do, and most of you are just really becoming more fascinated with it and diving into it deeper right alongside me. And the human design element is, it's just kind of like that next level. It uses astrology as well as the meridians and the chakra system and a few other components to kind of map out the body and the energetics of our body in a way that we can really understand our own energy. So today's guest is an expert in human design. Her name is Karishma. She is all the way in Singapore, which is so dope, honestly. It was so funny. When we were in our interview, we really wanted to switch places. I was like, "Can I go to Singapore and you can come to the Cayman?" And, if telepathy existed, we totally would have made that happen just to, get into the other person's shoes for a minute. But anyway, I digress. Karishma is an absolute expert in human design. Her knowledge is so, so deep. And I feel like she was the perfect person to come on to the show and give you guys such a great foundational base so that you can understand what human design is on a very like macro level, but then also understand how you can utilize that and incorporate it into your day-to-day life so that you can really discover your soul purpose, connect to your own energy, and live in alignment. Karishma talks about how for so many years she was really living out of alignment because she was living in a more generator mentality, which, don't worry if you don't know what that means. She does explain that in this episode, but how she was really forcing herself to fit a sort of framework that just isn't in her design. And once she discovered her design and understood her energy type, she was able to shift her schedule and her life in such a way so that she could feel in flow. And I feel that, in the craziness of this world that we're living in these days, everybody really just wants a bit more flow. There's no need to try to swim against the current. So I know that you guys are going to love this episode as much as I did. It was such a fun interview. And then for all of you that are tuning in that do already know what human design is, don't worry, there's something here for you too. So not only does Karishma cover the foundations and the basics, and we also go into the 5 energy types, but we also go into a deeper dive of the profiles, which is what I was really curious to learn more of. It's sort of that next layer in understanding your chart. Be sure to check the show notes. I will include a link there so that you guys can enter all of your data so that you can get your human design chart. And I would definitely recommend to either stop what you're doing now and do that now so that you have your chart info while you listen to the episode, or come back and re-listen or take some notes because I know you guys are going to want to explore this deeper for yourselves. Once you listen to this whole episode, I would love it if you would share over on Instagram. Let us know what your profile and energy type are, and then tag Karishma and myself so that we can connect and learn more about each other. I definitely know you guys are going to be so keen to dive deeper, and I just cannot wait to hear your feedback from this episode. As always, Clean Bee fam, take what resonates with you today and leave what doesn't. I hope you enjoy this episode, and if you do, I would be so honored if you would follow the show on Apple Podcast, drop some stars, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Share it with a girlfriend, share it with a family member, anybody that you think would be really curious and could benefit from learning more about themselves and connecting more to their own flow and their own energy type, which is all of what human design is about. So without further ado, you guys, let's dive into today's episode with Karishma. Love you guys so much, and I'll see you on the other side. I would love to start with just a little icebreaker question to get our conversation flowing. And I would love for you to share with the listeners what makes you feel inspired and like your best self.
So I actually love to feel inspired by kind of how my days and my energy flows. So rather than attaching myself to specific plans and outcomes that I have for my day to day, I kind of have an overall idea, and then I like to see how things naturally flow out. And that inspires me to keep moving forward every day.
Oh, that is such a good answer. And I feel like it's very, very helpful. As you were saying that, I was thinking in my head of like how often, times where I've set a quite rigid, schedule for the day, and how sometimes, you come to that midday point or evening and you're like, oh yeah, I just don't feel like doing that right now. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, like it is a learned thing that I've had to do, and I've had to let go of the attachment or the pressure. But it is something that, as we'll further discuss, human design and knowing my birth chart has really, really helped me to accept and embrace about myself. And now I find that, yeah, like I said, it inspires me to keep moving forward. It brings me joy. It brings me the surprise that I need as part of my design.
That is so good. Well, since you have gone ahead and brought that up, which is something that I'm so, so curious and passionate to learn more about, is human design. So, your coaching practice involves using tools like human design. So, I'd love for you to share first for the listeners that maybe this is the first time they're even hearing of human design. If you could just touch on a little bit of what that is, and then how you've come to do the work that you do and how you have used this in your own life.
Yeah, I would love to. So, just to give the basics and a little bit more of the technical definition of human design. So, it's a synthesis of different systems that where you look up the details of your birth chart, and then you understand a lot about yourself and your personality traits, your gifts, your strengths, and also how you can operate in your day to day and your energy. So it's a synthesis of different systems. One being traditional astrology, um, the I Ching system, the Kabbalah system, and the chakra system, as well as more scientific modalities like quantum mechanics. So within your human design and your human design chart, which is gained from your birth details, there is so much information that can really guide you and tell you who you are at your like base level, at your soul level, and the person that you came to be um, today. So another way that I like to do explain it, other than just the technical definition, which I just mentioned, is it's also a way that shows us how our energy works and how we can navigate our day to day accordingly. So there's multiple layers in the chart because there's multiple systems that are being synthesized into one. And each one just kind of dives us deeper into like how we can navigate our life.
That is such a good and detailed description. Thank you so much. I actually have actually always wanted to hear it broken down in that way because personally, like I know that it contains aspects of, the chakra system and astrology, but you know, understanding that it's all of these components brought together is just really cool. And it's, obviously it's a tool that you can use, like you said, to better understand yourself.
Exactly. And I think because it is a combination of the different systems, like when we look at the chart, we can look at it like either individually, so we can look at it layer by layer, and okay, I'm going to uncover this layer first, which is maybe the chakras, which are called energy centers in human design. So I'm going to uncover like which energy centers do I have defined and which ones are open and I'm more susceptible to the energy around me in those energy centers or chakras. And then, okay, then we can look at the next level or the next like system within it, which is the astrology part, which is the planetary placements and how they're influencing our energy. Or we can look at the next level, which is the I Ching and the gates, or we can look at the channels. So there's so many layers and levels to it, but it's also important, like as you want to learn about your own self and your chart to break it down, but then also to bring it back together to that one piece and that overall kind of synthesis of it for yourself. And that's where I talk about the energy. And so, yes, when I first look at a chart, I break it down. But then when I build a picture in my head and I can understand how that person is going to operate with their unique energy based on all the components.
Wow, that is so cool. I'm like just geeking out over here. Well, I would love for you to share before we dive more into kind of breaking down aspects of human design and how the listeners can implement that in their life. I would first love for you to share how you discovered it and how you came to do this work.
Yeah, so it is one of I mean it is a long story, but to bring it really simply is I was going through a really low period of my life a couple of years ago. And it was there was just a lot that had happened in my life at that time. So one was my mother had passed away, and the second was I was really lost and confused in my career, and I had kind of just quit my job because I was so miserable in it. And then the other thing was I was dealing with health stuff. So I was constantly like under the stress and under the physical discomfort of my body and my health. And so overall, this just led to me being in a low mental state. And when I was in this place, I was kind of just searching for answers wherever I could. Like, why is this happening to me? Why do I feel like this? And not only why do I feel like this now in this current phase of my life where so much was happening, but also why have I always felt so much pressure, and why have I always felt like I did not belong in places or that things were exceptionally hard? My like not not like my work itself, the day-to-day work in my job was not hard, but the idea of sticking to this career and trying to force things into my life and trying to make this overall career vision happen, it just always felt so hard and there was so much resistance. And so I was just in this place of searching for answers. And I think it was also this very specific time period. So the first thing that I came across when I was in this low place was that I was going through my Saturn return in astrology. So your Saturn return is your life phase between roughly the ages of 27, 28 to like 30, 31. And it's when Saturn makes its transit in your chart. So it's gone around like your entire chart and come back to the exact like placement that it was in when you were born. And because Saturn is such a slow moving planet, it can take up to like between 28 and 30 years to transit back. Um, so I was in my Saturn return, and so understanding that was the first step. Um, and I was like, okay, I understand now why, suddenly now in this phase of life, it feels like kind of like everything is happening at the same time. There was so much upheaval, there was so much flux, and it was like, okay, I get that this is maybe I can attribute it to the themes of my Saturn return. Um, but then I wanted more, right? I wanted to figure out more and deeper. So I don't even know the exact like way that I found human design, but it was through this search of finding answers, and then I came across this system. I looked at my own chart, and then from there I was just kind of hooked on um, yeah, the information that I found out about myself and how I understood myself and the way that my life had played out so clearly through my human design.
I think it's funny how a common thread among all the conversations that I've had with all of the incredible guests like yourself that have come on the podcast is that the shift into the work that everyone is either currently doing or the purpose that they're being filled with, and all of these shifts, especially with their health and wellness, they always come after a period of struggle. And I just find it so beautiful that you were able to take a low period, which I am so sorry for the loss of your mom. And
Thank you.
it just, I can't imagine that pain and to have to just go through that and navigate all of those changes. But I love that you've been able to fuel that into such a beautiful career that's purposeful and yeah, and helps other people and obviously is lighting you up as well. I also actually I love that you broke down the kind of premise around a Saturn return. Um, that is definitely something that I'm currently, well, I think I started around 27, 28, like you said, and then I just turned 30 this year. And I definitely feel like the past 2 years have been the biggest shifts in my life, to this point. So I can definitely relate to that feeling of just coming to this point of like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? What do I want? What do I want my life to look like? And just all of these sort of questions.
Yeah, exactly. I think most people do go through this phase where there is big shifts happening, but then of course they don't aren't aware of the concept of Saturn return and can't like directly attribute it. But I was in a place where it was
Hmm.
happening, and then I was like looking for the answer, and then I found it. But I think no matter what, yes, we all experience the energetic shifts that do happen in our Saturn return. Whether or not, like, yeah, we, like I said, we can attribute it to not, it still happens to us, and it happens to varying degrees. Obviously, I mean, everyone has different life experiences, but and also with Saturn specifically, like even though you and I may be in the same Saturn return, we may have Saturn in the same sign, which we do. It's Capricorn, but we most likely have it in a different house placement, which means that it will still play out very differently for us
Ooh.
as well. So yeah, yeah, there's a lot of depth to the Saturn return as well.
To kind of switch gears just a little bit, I would love if we could touch on the energies of human design. You kind of mentioned that in the beginning. And I don't want to spend too much time on that just because I think, um, you know, people that have heard of human design they'll definitely know what the energy types are. But I do want to mention it for those that have never heard of it to kind of give an overview. And then I would love for us to dive more into profiles and what those mean. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind just sharing the energy types of human design first.
Yeah, absolutely. So in human design, kind of the first layer, like as I previously mentioned, when we look at our charts, that we can look at it like layer by layer. So the first layer that everyone really looks at is the energy type, and the energy type is kind of derived from which centers you have colored in your chart, or in human design language, which centers you have defined, and which centers you have that are open or undefined, which are the ones that are not colored in. And again, the energy centers are related to the chakras, and they're when you pull up a human design chart, they're the shapes. So the energy type is derived from the centers and how they connect to one another. And there are five energy types. Some people say four, some people say five. Let's just say five for now. So there's there's the manifester, there is a generator, and there is a manifesting generator. Which, if we're looking at four types, then people group generator and manifesting generator. And then there is a projector and there is a reflector. So based on which energy centers we have defined, will fall into one of the five types or four types. And that really kind of is the first layer, because it's the most basic way to see how your energy operates and how you are kind of like, yeah, designed to um, navigate your day-to-day life based on the energy that you have, and also the your what is called authority in human design, which is based on which one of the centers being defined or colored in, and that's how you can navigate your day-to-day decisions and make decisions according to your human design. So all that to say, energy type is the first layer because it's kind of the most basic thing. Like it's the most straightforward way of understanding our energy and how it plays out. Um, and do you want me to go into each of the types a little bit?
Yeah, let's maybe touch on that a little bit. And I just want to mention as well to the listeners, I'll definitely include a link, of course, to how they can connect with you, but also how they can look up their chart as well. Because all you need is your birth time, your place of birth, your birthday, obviously. And is there anything else? Did I miss anything?
No, exactly. So it's quite straightforward as well to look up your own chart as long as you have, yeah, your birth details. It is nice to have an accurate birth time, um, because sometimes a chart may change minute to minute, but even if you have like a rough window, it should be fine just for these for the most for the first layer of your energy, which is your energy type.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So, yeah, if you could just go ahead and describe for the listener a little description of what each of the energy types, each one of them are.
All right, so if we start with manifestors, so manifestors make up about 9% of the population in terms of the energy. And manifestors are here to um, kind of lead the way and initiate the way for the rest of us. So the rest, yeah, the non 9%. And that means that they're the real ones that are, yeah, here to like have the ideas and start the ideas and create the impact in that way. And then the generators, and also if we take in the subtype of manifesting generators here, they make up the majority of the population, which is around 70%. And generators and manifesting generators are the ones who will kind of respond to the initiating energy of the manifester and kind of like carry out the work. So that means that generators and manifesting generators have what we call sacral energy, um, which is like the sustainable life force energy to carry out and implement the work and do the thing. And so they have really like the most energy to actually kind of get the things done that need to happen in this world. Um, One of the like misconceptions with generators and manifesting generators is that um, because they have sacral energy and they have the life force energy means that they a lot of people assume that they're like the ones who kind of just endlessly can work and do everything, but it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that generators and manifesting generators are not like susceptible to burnout, for example, even though they're less
Mm,
susceptible to it than other types. But because they have to really be fulfilled by what they do and they really have to kind of be like really deeply satisfied with the work and with what they're carrying out. And so that's when the kind of distinction comes in between, do I respond to like everything and do I do everything, or do I kind of honor my energy and just really respond and do what I know is going to satisfy me and fulfill me at the end of the day. And that's a
mm.
slight distinction that not a lot of people understand initially about generators and manifesting generators. And then we can move to projectors. So projectors are here to really kind of guide the rest of us. So they're the ones that kind of have this like ability to see everything and understand everything at this level of like knowing what's kind of right, like not right and wrong in terms of the binary, but like just kind of understanding how things work and kind of see the direction that that we need to go in. And so they're here to guide um, and move the energy. But the one thing about projectors is they kind of have to be invited to do so. So it's kind
Mm.
of like, solicited advice versus non-solicited advice, for example. So and that's because that if a projector shares their guidance without necessarily having that invitation, then that guidance may be perceived wrongly by the other party. And lastly, we have reflectors. So reflectors are the rarest of all energy types, where they don't have any centers defined. So that just means that reflectors are a lot more susceptible to the energy of others. And so sometimes reflectors are called one the mirror because they can kind of like reflect back the other person because they kind of don't have their own energy. So they just kind of reflect the energy of others because they're absorbing it and then reflecting it back. Sometimes they're called the chameleon, which means they can change depending, like their energy can change depending on who they're around and the environment they're in. But all that to say is because they're so kind of susceptible to the energy of others, it also means that there's like a deep wisdom there and they kind of can understand like where things feel off energetically either in their like micro environment or in the macro environment of the world, for example. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the 5 energy types.
Amazing. That was such a good description. Thank you for sharing and breaking that down. I would love for you to share with the listeners what your energy type is.
Yes. So I'm actually a reflector. So I
Love
think
that.
I think that's one of the reason, to be honest, that human design kind of resonated with me so deeply because being so rare with my energy um and then kind of struggling my whole life with the identity of like who am I, um one just gave me like an example, like such in like deep acceptance, like okay, I don't need to understand who I am because I'm so susceptible to the energy of others, and then I'm so rare, and then also yeah, like it was just a really big shift, and it kind of gave me that awareness to be like, okay, I don't have to. I'm not a reflector that needs to be acting like a generator, for example. I can let
Mhm.
that go, and I can let go of the idea that I need to be like a generator, and just really deeply accept that I'm a reflector. And that just gave so like just created massive shifts in my, not even in my like life in terms of my day to day, but in terms of my energy and my acceptance of myself.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, just like feeling like everything was hard for you at certain points, and how a lot of that was probably because maybe, like you just mentioned, that you were a reflector trying to live like a generator, which is also, like you mentioned, a majority of like a good portion of the population are generators.
Exactly. And the thing with reflectors is because we're so like susceptible and so up to the energy of others and so open, we also really need to take our time with decisions. So this the what is said for reflectors is to wait 28 days to make decisions, and that is based off the moon cycle because the moon kind of goes through its whole phase of like new moon, full moon, and everything in between every 28 days. And so if I have to wait 28 days to make a decision, but I'm kind of like living, in our world of like a corporate job, like that's really hard to
Yeah.
do, right? So, I mean, not even hard to do, it's impossible. So it just kind of gave me that, oh, wait, I don't need to, I mean, and of course I had the ability to, you know, leave my job and now do the work that I do, of course, but it just kind of gave me, yeah, just that, okay, I'm going to stop trying and I'm going to stop making things difficult for myself because I have to I feel like I have to be in this world or have this job or operate in this way.
Yeah, that's so true. It's a permission slip and like a tool to like better understand, and then to just feel more in flow. You're not going against the grain of what your actual energy is, and things can feel, I imagine, so much more aligned.
Exactly. Things just feel like freer. Like I'm much more calmer. I'm much more like, I don't need to, yeah, struggle. So I feel free
I
in
love
that
that
way.
so much. So I'd love to now kind of go one layer deeper, and talk about the profiles. Now, this is something that I have a very basic knowledge and understanding of. So just full disclosure. um, and it's something that I think, as I've learned more about human design, it's something that does seem to be an important, really important part of the chart, and something that the listeners at home, when they hopefully look up their chart, and maybe this is the first time they're discovering it, this is another aspect that they could kind of get a deeper understanding of and explore more of. So from what I understand, there are a set amount of profiles, and each one of those numbers essentially means something. If that's incorrect, please correct me. But I would love for you to kind of dive into how you did with the energy types of just what the different profiles are, and share kind of a little bit of information on that for the listener.
Yeah, absolutely. So the profiles, okay, so like I said that there's five energy types, right? So in profile there's actually, which as you mentioned is the next layer, there's actually 12 possible profiles that we can be. But a lot of times um people will find that one, they either resonate more with their profile, or two, they can kind of um like it's easier to identify or relate to a person who has the same profile as you, for example, than a person who has the same energy type for you.
Mm.
Because even though the energy type is the first layer and there's five, there's so many like also nuances to the energy type, which will come with the deeper exploration of an individual's chart. But profile, like there's 12 profiles, and it's easier to identify with because it's the archetypical role and that you play. So it kind of informs your personality, um and your like the way that your operate, like your energy's operating, again in your day to day, the way that you express yourself.
Mm.
um and so that's why we call it like archetypes, or it's like an actor, because it's the role that you play. And that's why it's easier to identify with your profile or with people that have the same profile as you. So, like I said, there can be 12 combinations of profiles, but they're based off of 6 lines, which comes from the I Ching. So it goes line 1 to 6, and then the combinations come like either you can have a 1-3 profile or a 2-4 profile, and that's where the combinations come in and make 12. So, just to go through like the lines one by one. So, and I'll give a brief description of each. So, line one is often referred to as the investigator, or the researcher. And this means that person with a one in their profile kind of needs to get to the bottom of things and kind of wants to understand information and concepts at a very foundational level. So they kind of need, they like, say for example, human design, right? And I'm a line one. I have a one in my profile. So with human design, like I really, once I discovered it, I really needed to understand it from all angles, from all depths, from all layers. I wanted to get to the root of what is human design and what does it mean, for me, for everyone. What is it? So yeah, we need to have this like foundational and solid understanding of a topic, and then we will want to share it and bring it to the world. But before that, we really need to have that understanding. So sometimes there is also, and I'll talk about for each of them like kind of the shadow side of each line. So with the line one, the shadow side is the fear and the insecurity that can come from not knowing enough about the topic. So it took me a long time to share about human design because I was like, I don't know enough. There's so many people there that know more than me. But then it's also about like embracing that you will never understand anything like 100%. So it's kind of, yeah, like understanding that about yourself. And then moving on to line two. So line two is referred to as the hermit. So a person with a two in their profile will have these like natural talents and these natural gifts and this what is called like a natural zone of genius to share with the world. but they'll kind of stay within their hermit energy and kind of want to stay to themselves, and not really recognize also this, this talent and this gift that they have until they're kind of called out for it. So somebody will be like, "Hey, can you please share your genius?" And then they'll be called out, and then they'll want to share it because they'll be like, "Oh, okay, somebody's asking me to share, so I'm going to go and do it." Um, but the shadows here is one, like, always wanting to stay in that hermit space. Um, and also the other side of it is when you are called out, kind of just like sharing too much and then burning yourself out in that way. Yeah, so it can go either way. And then a line 3 is referred to in different ways. So I've heard, so traditionally in human design language, it's called the martyr, but I like to call it as the scientist. So this is a person that, and I'm again a line 3, so my profile is a 1-3 profile. Um, so this is a person who really needs to go through life trialing and erroring everything and experimenting with everything. That's where that term of scientist comes in. So they just need to have that, like, experience for themselves. So, for example, like, someone can't tell them, "Oh, I tried it and this is the outcome." As a line 3, I would need to try that for myself. I'm not going to take that person's word until I figured it out for myself. Um, and then with that, like, experience, then I can kind of share my findings with others in the world. And then the shadow of this is kind of feeling ashamed or feeling like a failure because you've tried out so many things and maybe not all of them were successful. So just feeling really ashamed of that need to keep trying things out. um, and then line 4 is kind of referred to as the opportunist or networker. And this just means that they create opportunities for themselves through their network. So it's a person who has a really great support system and some really important relationships in their life. Um, and that's kind of where, like, things will happen for them as long as they're cultivating those relationships and those networks in that way, and then things will happen. So the shadow side of this is kind of like going out and feeling like you need to have all the relationships and have such a large network, and then maybe having a lack of boundaries in that way. And then the fifth line is referred to as the heretic, but which is a bit of a confusing term. But basically, um, the fifth line carries a lot of, like, leadership energy and kind of has this, like, heroic quality to them. So they are really someone that can have a universal impact and message and be a leader and guide others, but they're also kind of viewed as the hero or the savior in situations, and that's something that creates, like, this projection field in human design terms, which means that if people are looking to a line 5 person as a hero and someone who's going to save them, then the person who has the line 5 kind of, like, takes that on and feels the pressure to fulfill that, and then doesn't embody the leadership for themselves but for the other based on that projection.
Ah,
If that makes
yeah.
sense. And then and then a line 6, which is the last one, is kind of the person. It's referred to as the role model. So it's this person that really has a lot of wisdom and perspective, but they have to take life at a different pace as well. So they have a lot of gradual growth and development in their life, and they kind of go through different phases. So for the first phase of life, which a lot of people say is the pre-Saturn return phase, for a line 6 person, then they kind of operate more with the line 3 energy, where they're wanting to try things out and, and get into the weeds a little bit and have that trial and error experimentation process. And then post the first Saturn return is when they can kind of, what is called quote unquote going on the roof for line 6, is when they can kind of pull back and be like, oh, I spent the first 30-ish years of my life really figuring things out, and now I can get perspective from the roof, and I can kind of take a step back and kind of, like, learn from whatever I've tried, and then I can share my wisdom eventually. So it's kind of goes through this slow growth and development over the course of their life. So that means that line 6s need a lot of space to explore, to kind of refine and reflect, and then master as well. And then the shadow side of this is feeling feeling the pressure to like have it figured out already, and not like recognizing that you need time to grow and develop over the course of your life. And then if I bring in a little bit of your profile, so you are a 5-1. And what that means is, so the reason that we have, like two numbers, is the first number, in which in your case is the 5, is what is called more of our conscious side. So it's the side and the kind of role and the qualities that we're more aware of in our life. And then the second number, which in your case is the 1, is what is called the unconscious side. So it's something that we may be playing out in our life, but a little bit more like unconsciously, and we can't really fully understand and embrace it. It takes a little bit more time to see how the unconscious number has been playing out in your life. So for you, you're a 5-1.
Yeah, that is so interesting. Thank you so much for breaking all of that down. I've never heard it in such a very well explained way, and I learned so much from you just now. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you. Um, and I'm really sorry. I'm just taking a moment to take it all in. Because I also love that you touched on how the first number is sort of what we feel maybe more embodied with, and maybe what we're more aware of. And then the second number is something that we kind of have to discover more about ourselves. That definitely resonates with me, because as you were sharing about line 1 and how the shadow of that can be this sort of insecurity of like not knowing everything as the investigator. Um, I've definitely seen that play out in my life. If I even just think of this little platform, and my page, the Clean Bee, was something that I wanted to share holistic health and wellness almost 9 years ago when I first started, my own health and wellness journey. But I always held back because I thought I didn't know enough. And so just to hear that sort of reflected back in what you shared, I just wanted to let you know that really like touched me and kind of makes sense. And now I'm just sort of at this phase where maybe it's the Saturn return as well. I'm just all of these things kind of culminating together, where I'm like, well, I don't know everything. I'm still learning, but I'm happy to share what I've already learned and to serve the collective in the way that I can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a really great summary of it. And do you mind if I share how I see your profile playing out according to what you do through the Clean Bee?
Ooh, oh my goodness. Yes, I'd be honored.
Okay, so I think, like, from what I see on, your profile, on your Instagram profile, and what I know about you is you want to break down these concepts of what is it to live a clean life, right? And a holistic life in that way. And then you can bring in, like, I know that one of your recent posts was like, what is considered like the processed foods. Like, I've seen that post on your
Oh,
Instagram.
yeah.
So it's like this concept of, okay, you really kind of took time to break down in your head and yourself in your life what does it mean to lead a clean and holistic life? And what does it mean? Like, how does it play out with all the information, what we are all like exposed to? What the example here being the processed foods, right? And then you're like, okay, I've kind of understood it for myself. And now I want to bring the information to others in this very simplistic way. So I'm going to give the example of these specific processed foods, for example. So it's like taking the overall information, having a foundational understanding of what it is to live this life, and then breaking it down into bite-sized like pieces of content, which exactly what Instagram is for, and then sharing it with others and like embodying it and sharing it in that leadership way, right? Of now I've done it, I've incorporated it, and this is the way that you can do it too. And I'm going to be a leader in this space. And that's how I see. So in that way, you do have that, universal impact and message of like wanting to break down what it is to live this way. So that's how I see your profile playing out, and I just wanted to know like what your thoughts are on that.
Wow. I'm totally like blushing. I know we can't see each other, but yeah, I definitely feel very seen and like deeply understood from something just which is just what is so cool and I think empowering about human design, of how you're able to garner this information about me, even though we haven't connected a ton and obviously not met in person. That is definitely exactly the impetus behind wanting to launch the page. And the work that I do when I always come back to my why is always this kind of energy and this feeling of just wanting to share my experiences and sort of what I've discovered, and then had some time to kind of like ruminate on it and work it out, figure it out, and then share it in a way that exactly like you said, bite-sized pieces, and to just kind of usher in the next level of understanding for people so that they can see that they can take this power for themselves as well. Like I just want people at the end of the day to feel empowered, and I want them to feel, no matter where you are in your journey, you can start somewhere, you can start small, and that you have the ability to like enact change in your own life.
I love that. I love that that is your big why. It's so beautiful and it's resonating with me so much. And yeah, like I said, I really do see it in your profile, and I really do believe that you are here to have that impact and message, which is just so beautiful.
Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing that just now. That is, yeah, I feel deeply understood, and it's just incredible. And I think it just affirms the power of these tools and the ability to understand yourself on a deeper level, and also understand others, which you kind of touched on earlier. And I think that that is just something that I also find really useful. I've looked up my partner's chart, and while you were speaking through the profiles, I'm thinking in my head, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know he has a 2. I think he's a 2-4 if I remember correctly. Um, but it's such an exciting way to understand others, and then you have almost more grace for yourself and those around you when you do understand, because things just start to make more sense, I think.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it gives you the acceptance of yourself and the grace, as you said. And then it also, like, one helps you understand the other, but then also helps you understand yourself in relation to the other. So there's also the layer of going into like looking at the two charts, and how they connect and how your energy connects when you're around that person, and like how you can kind of play off each other energetically in that way. Um, yeah, so it's definitely just like there's so much depth in the tool. And one thing that I love about human design is that it really like as I mentioned it, it shows you your energy and how it works, and then that creates the acceptance. But it also creates this like picture of yourself in your highest potential. And this is where the concept of dharma comes in, right? Because dharma can be considered to be our purpose or our highest potential as well. And so when you have a chart and when you have this physical kind of tool and like, guide to yourself, you can see how you are meant to be operating at your highest potential. And then in our human design or in any birth chart, there's always like the higher side of it, and then there's the shadow expression. So I went into the shadow expression of each of the lines a little bit. But every aspect of our chart, the energy centers, our energy type, every aspect has a shadow side and a lower expression. So it's like we can see, what is our highest potential and what is the highest expression and highest version of ourselves that we can potentially be in this life. And then where are we operating right now? Where are we? Are we more on the shadow side? Are we somewhere in the middle? How do we get to the higher side? Or is it like, in this particular time in my life, I'm in this, I'm operating a little bit more out of the shadow, or in this interaction with someone, I've just kind of, operated a little bit more of the shadow. And then how can I change that in my next interaction with that person? Or how can I move overall into a different phase of my life where I'm operating a little bit more out of my highest potential? And that's what I love, love, love about the chart. And that's where I really love working with clients, because it's really about working through these phases or these, these lived experiences of their lives, and working through how do we get to the next phase or to the next place, or how do we kind of get out of where we are right now and the struggle that we're feeling, but through the chart, which gives us the physical guide and the physical roadmap. And that's really what I love about, human design, astrology, all of it. I love using these tools to coach. I love bringing in dharma and kind of creating that story of what a person's highest potential is, so that they can see it and then they can kind of like aim for it, but not in an attached way, right? Like, okay, my highest potential is ABC and I have to follow it like, 1, 2, 3 to get there. But not in an attached way, but just in a way like, okay, I understand it and I know that I have so much more potential, and I have like kind of the confidence and the acceptance that I will eventually get there.
I love that you just shared about how it's the highest potential and then sort of the lower potential, and how you can actually, it's like it almost illuminates a sort of map, of what you can embody. And but I do love that you mentioned that you don't, it's not, oh, this is exactly what I need to do. It's just more of like an embodiment of like who you can become and what's your highest good. And I love that you bring all of these tools together in your coaching, and I'm sure all of your clients are so grateful for that. And I just appreciate you sharing all of this wisdom with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I genuinely love sharing this information, and I think there's always this like journey with human design, and yeah, like the birth chart overall is, everyone wants to dive in, everyone wants to like look up their chart, and I'm this energy type and I'm this profile, which is amazing, because I would love for kind of everyone to know their human design. But it's like it always goes through the phase of, okay, I'm gonna look up and understand everything in my chart, and I'm gonna be like, I'm a reflector and I'm a 1-3 profile, for example. But then it really is the next phase is, verse like the first phase where you're kind of understanding and researching and intellectualizing everything within your chart. And then the second phase is, as you said, the embodiment of it. And then the really, really like unpacking how things have played out in your life in the past, and then what is happening currently, like what is happening in this situation, how is it playing out now? And then, yeah, like how can I just further refine, further embody it in my life? um, in my own way, because just because we're 1 in 5 energy types or 1 in 12 profiles doesn't mean that everyone has to operate the same way. So really, truly understanding how it plays out in your life, and taking your time with it. I think that is like the core of what I believe, that human design is here for. It's really the embodiment and the yeah, just taking your time with it to understand it for yourself.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I love that you even just touched on the fact that, just because you're this energy type and this profile, it doesn't mean that that's the same one size fits all for everyone. And the fact that it is this more intuitive approach to deeper, your own connection to yourself. And then it's finding that like internal flame within. And I'm something big that I talk about all the time on the podcast is just not outsourcing your power and not giving away your sovereignty to someone else, and really just deeper your connection to yourself, and then know your own inner truth, and relating that back to you. So I think that's so important, and I love that you touched on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the same way that we can give our power away to another, we can also give our power away to the system of human design. And like I said, I think everyone goes through this phase. I definitely know that I did. Is like you want to learn about it and you want to understand it with your mind. Um, but that is in a way giving your power away to the system, because you're like writing, like, you're like, this is what I am according to my chart. But then, as I said, it's like not really attaching to it in that way as well is important. And that's why I love the idea of coaching, like building the longer term relationship with a client to like really see how it plays out like over the course of time. And a lot of the times for clients, like depending on kind of where they are, sometimes I don't even talk about the terms and the language. I don't share with them that, your energy type is a generator, because it takes away from the essence of the information. So sometimes I'll just explain what a generator means without using the term generator. And
Mm.
I think sometimes that has a little bit more impact, um, because then they can, again, not attach to the term and the language and just understand it for themselves.
Yeah, and actually take time to integrate as well, and I agree. I think that's what's so incredible about coaching and the work that you do is that it enables the client to discern for themselves what it means for themselves. And especially in the age of, the bite-sized information, which obviously I love, and that's part of the things that I love to share is especially breaking down a more complex idea into a more digestible piece. But especially when it comes to human design, I feel like there's just so much on social media of these kind of overarching archetypes, which is amazing. And it's so fun and it's helpful and it's also educational. But you're right, where, people can think, oh, okay, well, then I'm that. So that means I'm exactly what this person said in this little graphic. And it's like, no, like, integrate it into your own life and see how it fits, see how the shoe fits, and discover for yourself what that means, which sounds like that's what you do and how you guide your clients, which I think is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I love that, the information is out there like all over Instagram, whether it's, yeah, this bite-sized content, or some people, just with their blog posts, they go deeper, or their lives or whatever. But so I love overall that the information is out there, because I want more and more people to discover the system, like I said. But yeah, it does take a little bit more time than just reading some squares on Instagram.
Totally. Well, I would love to shine the spotlight on you a little bit. So, one, thank you for everything. This conversation has been so illuminating and educational and fun, for me, as well as I'm sure the listener at home. And so, thank you. And I would love to now kind of know what a non negotiable is in your day that helps set you up for a successful day.
So I think something that I've kind of um, like discovered for myself, and like if we go back to right at the beginning, what I said about I like to see how my energy plays out, is I don't like to follow structure, and I think that a big part of it is the reflector energy within me. Um, because I do like kind of ebb and flow with the moon, for example, right? But so the way that I build structure for myself is I have daily pillars that I like to have in my life. So one of my daily pillars is so if I go through all five, so one is about like movement in my body. The second one is about nourishing and taking care of my body. So whether like that's through food or like self care in other ways. Um, the third pillar is like spending time actively focusing my mind in some way with not being like, you know, reading charts or working on content or working on my business, for example. My fourth pillar is intentionally connecting with others. And my fifth pillar is expansion. So sometimes that looks like expanding my knowledge by like reading something new or listening to a podcast. Um, so with all of these pillars, that those are the non-negotiables. So they, in the same way that, you know, they can really vary day to day, right? Like my daily tasks can vary, like what kind of movement I do varies, for example. But the pillars give me the structure and the foundations I need. So the pillars are my non-negotiables. And then in that same way, I have a lot of room for um, like joy, surprise, pleasure in my life because there's so much like flexibility within that structure.
Wow, I love that so much. That is similar to kind of like some what I do in health coaching of kind of creating these. I love that you call them pillars. I call them, yeah, like the foundational, components of what makes up a whole body health perspective. And it's all of these little components. It's not just the nourishment or the movement, it's the expansion, like you said, and the connection. And yes, that is so beautiful and so helpful, I think, for the listeners. So I appreciate you sharing that. That is incredible.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really love sharing like yeah how I've used my design in my life because it's and it's still of course a struggle at times, but it has really just been this really slow process of integrating aspects of my chart and seeing how they play out for me. And now at this point, and it might change down the line, but at this point, these pillars really, really just really play out well for my energy and really yeah like bring me so much like joy and peace and contentment with that.
I would love for you now to share with the listeners where they can connect with you. How can they work with you? I feel like everyone is going to be so curious to dive and explore deeper into their own charts. So I would love for you to share with how they can do that with you and where they can connect with you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So they can either connect with me on Instagram. Um, so my handle is at Galipani, and I'll give you like the link to put in the show notes, or on my website, which is mygali.o. Again, I'm sure we'll have the link there. Um, and yeah, so and then I'll also include, as we mentioned before, the link for how anyone can look up their own chart. But if they want to dive deeper and want to kind of get my perspective on their chart or understand, as we talked about, how it plays out in their lives day to day, and really understand and integrate and embody that for themselves, then I would love to work with anyone and everyone. And so yeah, they can reach out to me.
Incredible. Yes, that is amazing. And as you said, I will be including all of that in the show notes so everyone can connect with you easy. And the fact that you took the time to share your knowledge with us today truly means a lot. So I just want to thank you for that so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I really love sharing this information and sharing my perspective on it. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me on. I've really, really loved getting to know you and chatting with you. It's been so nice. It's been, it doesn't feel like it's so late here because I'm just so energized by our conversation right now.
Oh, I love that so much. That makes me really happy. Maybe that's I think my generator going into your reflector and we're just energizing each other.
Definitely, that definitely plays a part. Absolutely. You nailed it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, my dear. I so appreciate it. And I can't wait to continue to connect with you offline and have the listeners explore connecting with you as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care, my dear.